I was sitting in the third pew from the front when Pastor Michael's words cut through the air like a knife meant specifically for me. Some of you are holding on to things God has already told you to release. My hands gripped the edge of the wooden pew so hard my knuckles turned white. Around me, heads nodded. A woman behind me whispered amen. Another one said preach. But I felt like I was sitting there naked, exposed, with everyone looking at me even though no one was actually turning around. Unforgiveness is a prison, he continued, his voice rising with that particular cadence preachers use when they're building to a point. His hand came down on the pulpit. And you're not punishing the person who hurt you. You're punishing yourself. You're the one locked up. You're the one who can't move forward. You're the one losing sleep while they're sleeping just fine. If only he knew. If only any of them knew what my sister had done to me. What she'd taken. What she'd destroyed. Then maybe they wouldn't be nodding along so easily. Maybe they'd understand that some things aren't as simple as just letting go and moving on. Maybe they'd see that their simple answers don't apply to complicated situations. But I sat there silent, like I'd been sitting silent for months, and let the sermon wash over me like water I couldn't absorb. Let me back up because you need to understand who I am. Who I was before all of this happened. My name is Diane, I'm 52 years old, and for the last 30 years I've been the person people in my community call when they need help. Need someone to organize the church fundraiser? Call Diane. Need someone to bring meals when you're sick? Diane will do it. Need financial advice or help making ends meet? Diane's got you covered. She's responsible. She's reliable. She's the one who shows up. I worked 2 jobs for 15 years to build what I had. Cleaned offices at night, worked as a medical billing specialist during the day. Saved every penny I could. My husband died when I was 35, left me with a mortgage and no life insurance because we were young and thought we had time. Everyone said I should sell the house, downsize, make it easier on myself. Move into an apartment. Stop trying to hold on to something that was too big for a widow. I didn't. I worked harder. I paid off that house in 12 years. 12 years of double shifts and no vacations and eating rice and beans more nights than I want to remember. 12 years of falling asleep at my desk. Of wearing the same 3 outfits to work because I couldn't afford new clothes. Of driving a car that was held together with duct tape and prayer because a car payment wasn't in the budget. But I did it. That house was mine, free and clear. It was my security. My retirement plan. My proof that hard work and faith could get you through anything. When I made that final payment, I cried for an hour in my kitchen. Just sat there with the paid-off mortgage papers in my hands and thanked God. I was respected in my church. People asked my advice. I led a women's Bible study on Wednesday nights. I sang in the choir, alto section, back row. I was the person who showed up early and stayed late. The person who could be counted on to volunteer for anything. The person who organized the food pantry, coordinated the prayer chain, brought casseroles to every funeral. And I loved my sister. God, I loved my sister so much. Teresa was 5 years younger than me. She'd had a harder life, or at least that's what I always told myself. Never could keep a job for long. Had 3 kids by 3 different men, none of whom stuck around. She'd call me crying at 2 in the morning about how she couldn't make rent, couldn't feed her kids, couldn't handle it anymore. Her voice would be thick with tears and panic and I'd be wide awake in seconds, already thinking about how much I could spare from my checking account. And I always helped. Always. Because that's what family does. That's what Christians do. You don't turn your back on blood. The first time she asked to borrow money was maybe 10 years ago. $500. Her electricity was going to be shut off and her youngest, Marcus, needed it for his breathing machine. He had asthma, bad asthma, the kind where he'd end up in the emergency room if he couldn't use his nebulizer. I gave her the money that same day. Didn't even hesitate. Told her to pay me back when she could, but not to worry about it if she couldn't. She never did pay me back. But I didn't push it. $500 wasn't going to break me, and Marcus needed to breathe. What kind of aunt would I be if I let my nephew suffer over money? Then it was $1,000. Her car broke down and she needed it fixed to get to work. Then $2,000 for back rent when she was about to be evicted. Then she needed help with a different car because the old one wasn't worth fixing and she couldn't get to work without one. That was $5,000. I hesitated on that one, sat with the checkbook open for a solid hour, but she cried on my porch and her kids were standing behind her looking hungry and tired and wearing shoes with holes in them, and what was I supposed to do? Over the years, I gave my sister probably $30,000. Maybe more. I stopped keeping exact track because it made me feel bad, made me feel like I was counting when the Bible says to give freely without keeping score. Cast your bread upon the waters, the Bible says. Give and it shall be given unto you. I believed that. I really did. I believed that my generosity would come back to me. That God saw my sacrifice and would bless me for it. 3 years ago, Teresa called me on a Tuesday night. I remember because Tuesday was Bible study night and I'd just gotten home. I was tired, looking forward to a quiet evening with a cup of tea and maybe catching up on some TV I'd recorded. Diane, I need to talk to you about something. Her voice sounded different. Not the usual crisis panic. Calmer. More serious. More purposeful. What's wrong? Is it one of the kids? Nothing's wrong. Actually, something might be really right for once. Can I come over? She showed up an hour later with a folder full of papers. Sat at my kitchen table and spread them out in front of me like she was presenting a business proposal. There were brochures, spreadsheets, business registration forms, a whole professional setup. I'm starting a business, she said. I must have looked skeptical because she immediately got defensive. Her jaw tightened and she sat up straighter. I know what you're thinking. But this is different, Diane. This is real. I've been taking classes at the community college. Business management. Marketing. Accounting. All of it. I've got a certificate and everything. I'm going to start a cleaning service. She had it all planned out. Had done research on startup costs, had clients lined up from her classes and from people she knew, had even registered a business name. Supreme Shine Cleaning Services. Had a logo designed. Had pricing worked out. Had done actual market research. That's wonderful, Teresa, I said, and I meant it. I was genuinely proud of her. I'm so proud of you for doing this. I need help with the startup costs though. Equipment, insurance, licensing, a vehicle, all of that. The bank won't give me a loan because my credit is shot. I've tried 3 different banks and they all turned me down. There it was. I should have seen it coming, but part of me had hoped this time would be different. That she was coming to share good news, not ask for money. How much do you need? $15,000. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. It was just such an absurd amount. Teresa, I don't have $15,000 just sitting around. But you have the house. You paid it off. You could take out a home equity loan. My stomach dropped. I felt physically ill. What? It's not a big deal. People do it all the time. You'd get a loan against the house, give me the money to start the business, and then I'd pay you back with interest. You'd actually make money on the deal. I've done the math, look. She pushed a spreadsheet across the table. I'd pay you back $200 a month. That's more than you'd make in a savings account. Teresa, I spent 12 years paying off this house. 12 years. I'm not taking out a loan on it. Her face changed. Hardened. Her eyes went cold in a way I'd never seen before. So you'll give me thousands of dollars over the years for emergencies, but you won't invest in my future? Won't help me actually build something so I don't have to keep coming to you with my hand out? The guilt hit immediately, crashed over me like a wave. She was right, wasn't she? Wasn't it better to help her become self-sufficient than to just keep bailing her out? Wasn't this exactly what I should want for her? Let me think about it, I said. There's a deadline. I have to submit everything by the end of the month or I lose the clients I have lined up. They can't wait forever. If I don't start by June 1st, they'll find someone else. 2 weeks later, I took out a $20,000 home equity loan. Went to the bank, signed all the papers, felt sick the entire time. Gave Teresa $15,000 for the business and kept $5,000 in savings for emergencies. Told myself this was an investment. This was helping her build a better life. This was the right thing to do. The paperwork was complicated. Pages and pages of legal documents I didn't fully understand. Teresa said she needed me to be listed as a co-owner for legal reasons, something about liability and insurance. Something about how if the business got sued, it would be better if there were two owners to spread the liability. I didn't fully understand it, but I trusted her. She was my sister. Why would she lie to me? I signed where she told me to sign. For the first few months, things seemed good. Really good. Teresa was excited, working hard, leaving for jobs at 6 in the morning. She'd send me pictures of her cleaning jobs, tell me about satisfied customers. Show me 5-star reviews people were leaving online. She was making money, she said. Business was steady. Not enough to pay me back yet, but soon. Maybe by Christmas. Then the calls started getting less frequent. The updates stopped. When I'd ask how the business was going, she'd be vague. Fine. Busy. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I'd never run a business. But I trusted her. I had to trust her. A year passed. Then another year. She never paid me back a single dollar. Not one payment. When I'd bring it up, she'd get defensive. Her voice would rise. She'd start listing all the expenses she had. I'm barely making ends meet, Diane. The business is harder than I thought. Equipment breaks down. Clients cancel. Insurance is expensive. I'm doing my best here. But she'd post on Facebook about going out to dinner. About buying her daughter a new iPhone for her birthday. About a weekend trip to the beach with her girlfriends. About concert tickets. If you're watching this and you've ever trusted someone who betrayed that trust, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This story goes places that still hurt to talk about. And leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not alone in this. 6 months ago, I got a letter in the mail. Official-looking envelope. Law firm's return address. I opened it standing at my mailbox and the words didn't make sense at first. I read the same sentence 3 times. Notice of default. Foreclosure proceedings. Payment overdue. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped the letter. There had to be a mistake. I paid my property taxes on time every year, had them on autopay. I didn't have a mortgage anymore. This had to be for someone else. Maybe the mailman delivered it to the wrong address. I called the number on the letter. Waited on hold for 20 minutes listening to terrible hold music. Yes, ma'am, there's a home equity loan on the property. Payments haven't been made in 4 months. We sent previous notices to the business address on file. What business address? She read it to me. Teresa's address. The business address for Supreme Shine Cleaning. My vision actually blurred. Everything went fuzzy at the edges. I had to sit down on the porch steps before I fell down. There must be a mistake. I took out that loan 3 years ago. I've been making payments. I set up automatic payments. Let me check the account. Can you verify the account number? I read it off the letter with shaking hands. Okay, I see here that automatic payments were set up initially from your checking account but were cancelled 18 months ago. Since then, no payments have been made. The account is seriously delinquent. That's impossible. I never canceled anything. I didn't even know you could cancel automatic payments. According to our records, the cancellation was submitted online using the account credentials. Let me see, yes, here it is. Cancelled on March 15th of last year. Teresa. Teresa had access to the account because she was listed as a co-owner on the business paperwork. She'd cancelled my automatic payments and I never knew because all the notices were going to her address, the business address, and she'd just been throwing them away or ignoring them. How much do I owe? With penalties and interest, $14,832. And that's as of today. It goes up every day. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. That was almost all the money I had left in savings. Everything I'd been rebuilding since giving her the $15,000. I called Teresa. She didn't answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. And again. Still voicemail. Finally, after the 7th call, she picked up. What, Diane? I'm working. I'm with a client. Why haven't you been making the payments on the loan? Silence. Complete silence. I could hear background noise, traffic sounds, but she didn't say anything. Teresa, answer me. Why are the payments not being made? I'm getting foreclosure notices. They're going to take my house. I don't know what you're talking about. The home equity loan. For the business. You were supposed to be making the payments. That was the whole agreement. I gave you the money, you make the payments. I never said I'd make the payments, Diane. That was your loan. Your name is on it. For your business. A business we both own. You signed the papers. You're as responsible as I am. Maybe more, since you're the one who took out the loan. My sister. My baby sister who I'd raised half the time when our mother was working 3 jobs. My sister who I'd given everything to. She was lying to me like I was a stranger. Like I was nobody. Teresa, I'm about to lose my house. The house I spent 12 years paying off. 12 years of my life. I need you to help me fix this. I can't help you. I don't have that kind of money. What about the business? What about all the money you've been making? All those clients you've been posting about? The business failed, Diane. It's been closed for over a year. I thought you knew. A year. She'd let me believe she was still working, still trying, still building something, while the loan went unpaid and my house moved toward foreclosure. You have to do something. This is my home. This is everything I have. Maybe you should have read what you were signing before you signed it. I told you what the papers were for. This isn't my problem. You can't put this on me. She hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried harder than I'd cried since my husband died. Cried until my throat hurt. Until my eyes were swollen. Until I had no tears left. Called her back. The call went straight to voicemail immediately. She'd blocked my number. I tried texting. The messages turned green. Blocked. I tried Facebook Messenger. Blocked there too. My sister had cut me off completely. The next Sunday, I went to church because I didn't know where else to go. I was running on 2 hours of sleep and 3 cups of coffee and pure desperation. Sat in my usual pew. Sang the hymns, though I could barely get the words out. Tried to focus on the sermon but all I could think about was foreclosure notices and homeless shelters and how I'd let this happen. Pastor Michael was talking about forgiveness. About letting go. About trusting God to handle our problems. After service, I waited until most people had left. Stood outside his office until he was alone. Knocked on the door frame. Pastor, I need guidance. Do you have a few minutes? He smiled warmly, gestured to the chair across from his desk. Of course, Sister Diane. What's troubling you? I told him. Not all the details, but enough. That my sister had betrayed my trust. That I was facing serious financial consequences because of her. That I was angry and hurt and didn't know how to forgive when she wouldn't even acknowledge what she'd done. He listened with his hands folded on his desk, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. Diane, I understand you're hurting. But the Bible is clear about forgiveness. 70 times 7, Jesus said. We must forgive as Christ forgave us. Without forgiveness, bitterness takes root and destroys us from the inside. I know that, Pastor. I've been teaching that in Bible study for years. But she won't even acknowledge what she did. She's blocked me. She's walking around like nothing happened while I'm about to lose my home. That's between her and God. You have to focus on your own heart. On your own spiritual condition. Holding on to anger won't change her behavior. It'll only hurt you. It'll only make you sick. So I'm supposed to just let it go? Pretend she didn't destroy my life? Pretend I'm not about to be homeless? His expression shifted slightly. Less warm. More stern. The pastor voice instead of the friend voice. Diane, I think you need to examine whether you're truly trusting God in this situation. He tells us to cast our anxieties on Him. To trust that He'll provide. Maybe this is a test of your faith. Maybe God is trying to teach you something. A test. My sister stealing from me, committing fraud, destroying my financial security, that was a test of my faith. I wanted to scream. Wanted to flip his desk over. Wanted to tell him that easy platitudes about forgiveness don't mean anything when you're about to be homeless at 52 years old with no safety net. But I didn't. I thanked him quietly, voice barely above a whisper, and left. I felt more alone walking out of that church than I'd felt in years. That night, I got a call from my friend Margaret. She went to the same church, had known Teresa for years, had been in my Bible study group since we started it. Diane, honey, I heard about what happened with Teresa. I'm so sorry. How did you hear? She's been telling people at church. About the business troubles. About how hard things have been for her. My stomach turned. What exactly has she been saying? Margaret hesitated. Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. Please. I need to know. She's saying you forced her into a business deal she wasn't ready for. That you pushed her to start a company before she was prepared. And now you're trying to blame her for your financial problems. She's been getting a lot of sympathy. I couldn't speak. Literally couldn't form words. My sister wasn't just betraying me. She was destroying my reputation. Making herself the victim. Rewriting history to make me the villain. I didn't believe her, of course, Margaret continued quickly. I know you. I know your heart. But she's been making the rounds, talking to people. I thought you should know. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for hours. Didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there thinking about how thoroughly Teresa had destroyed me. Not just financially. But socially. Spiritually. She'd taken everything. The next Sunday, I felt the shift immediately. People who usually greeted me warmly were polite but distant. The conversations that normally happened around me seemed to stop when I walked up. The whispers started when I walked by. I wasn't imagining it. After service, one of the women from my Bible study pulled me aside. Janet, who'd been in the group for 5 years. Diane, I don't want to get involved in family business, but I think you should work things out with your sister. Family is important. Whatever happened between you two, I'm sure it can be resolved if you both just communicate and forgive. She had no idea what had actually happened. No idea about the fraud, the lies, the foreclosure. But she'd already decided I was partly to blame. It's more complicated than that, Janet. Family is always complicated. But at the end of the day, she's your sister. You only get one family. Don't let money come between you. Money. Like it was about money. Like Teresa hadn't potentially destroyed my entire life. I stopped going to Bible study. Couldn't sit there and lead discussions about faith and trust when my own life was falling apart and no one seemed to care about the truth. Couldn't pretend everything was fine while the women in my group whispered about me behind my back. I withdrew. Stopped answering most calls. Stopped going to church events. Showed up for Sunday service and left immediately after. No more coffee hour. No more volunteering. No more being the person everyone could count on. Pastor Michael called me once. I let it go to voicemail at first, but he called again. Diane, it's Pastor Michael. We miss you at Bible study. The women are concerned about you. I'll be back when I can. Is everything okay? I know you're going through a difficult time with your sister. But running from community isn't the answer. We're here to support you. But they weren't supporting me. They were judging me. Taking sides without knowing the facts. Telling me to forgive and move on without even asking for my side of the story. I appreciate that, Pastor. I just need some time. How much time? It's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Like there was a deadline on grief. On betrayal. On having your life torn apart. I don't know. I'm doing the best I can. I spent the next 3 months in survival mode. Worked every hour I could get. Picked up overtime at my regular job. Found a third job doing weekend shifts at a nursing home, 12-hour shifts that left me so exhausted I'd fall asleep in my car before driving home. Ate one meal a day to save money, usually just rice and whatever vegetables were on sale. Cancelled everything I could cancel. Netflix, gone. My phone plan downgraded to the absolute bare minimum. Stopped using air conditioning even though it was summer and my house was sweltering. Sold everything I could sell. Went through my house like a tornado. Jewelry my husband had given me. Furniture I didn't absolutely need. My wedding china that I'd been saving for special occasions that never came. Books. Decorations. Anything worth more than a few dollars went on Facebook Marketplace or to the pawn shop. I paid off the loan. Barely. By the skin of my teeth. Used up my entire savings, every penny I had, and went into credit card debt for the rest, but I paid it off. My house was safe. But I was broke. Completely broke. Exhausted to the point of collapse. And angrier than I'd ever been in my life. I tried one more time to contact Teresa. Sent her a letter through regular mail since she'd blocked me everywhere else. Sat at my kitchen table and wrote it by hand because I wanted her to see my handwriting, to know I'd taken the time. I paid off the loan. I saved the house. You nearly destroyed everything I worked for and you don't even care. I'm not asking you to pay me back anymore. That ship has sailed. I just need you to acknowledge what you did. I need you to take responsibility. I need you to tell me you're sorry for what you put me through. That's all. Just acknowledge it. She never responded. The letter probably went straight into her trash. 2 months later, I saw her at the grocery store. It was a Saturday afternoon, I was exhausted from working a double shift, and I'd stopped in to grab milk and bread. I turned down the cereal aisle and there she was. She was with her daughter, laughing about something. Her cart was full, name brand everything. Expensive cuts of meat, fresh flowers. She looked good. Healthy. Happy. Unburdened. Like she didn't have a care in the world. She saw me. Our eyes met across the aisle. For a second, maybe 2 seconds, we just looked at each other. I thought maybe she'd come over. Say something. Apologize. Acknowledge what she'd done. She turned and walked the other way without a word. Just turned her cart around and disappeared down another aisle. Something broke in me that day. Something fundamental and irreparable. Something I don't think I can ever get back. If you're still watching, thank you. Hit that like button if this is resonating with you. And seriously, drop a comment about where you're from and what part of this story is hitting home. I need to know there are people out there who understand how complicated family can be. I stopped going to church entirely. Couldn't sit there and listen to sermons about forgiveness when nobody wanted to talk about justice. About accountability. About the fact that some people destroy others and face no consequences. About the fact that the Bible also talks about protecting yourself from evil people, about not casting your pearls before swine, about shaking the dust off your feet and moving on. Margaret called me weekly at first, then monthly. "We miss you," she'd say. "When are you coming back?" Like I was on vacation. Like I'd just taken a break and would return when I felt like it. Finally, I told her the truth. "I'm not coming back, Margaret. Not to that church." "Why not?" "We're your family." Family doesn't take sides without knowing the whole story. Family doesn't judge. Family doesn't make the victim feel guilty for being victimized. She was quiet. "Then, we didn't mean to make you feel that way." "Maybe not. But that's what happened anyway." Pastor Michael called once more, a few weeks after that conversation with Margaret. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Diane, it's been months. People are worried about you. We'd love to see you back at church." "I don't think that's going to happen, Pastor." "Why not?" "We're your church home. Your community." The community took her side without even hearing mine. "That's not true. No one took sides. We're just encouraging reconciliation. Encouraging both of you to work through this. Reconciliation requires two people, Pastor. She won't even speak to me." "Have you tried forgiving her anyway?" "Not for her sake, but for yours?" Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. There it was again. Forgiveness as the solution to everything. Forgiveness as the magic cure-all. Just forgive and everything will be fine. "I'm working on it," I lied. Because it was easier than explaining that forgiveness without accountability is just enabling. That I couldn't forgive someone who wouldn't even admit they'd done something wrong. "I hope you'll reconsider coming back. We need people like you in our congregation." But they didn't need me. They needed the version of me who served without question, gave without boundaries, sacrificed without complaint. The version who would smile and nod and forgive and forget. That version was gone. I wasn't working on forgiveness. I was drowning in bitterness and anger and hurt. Every day I woke up in the house I'd almost lost and felt rage that my sister was out there living her life while I'd nearly lost everything. Every single day. I started having anxiety attacks. Real ones, where I couldn't breathe and my heart would race and I'd be convinced I was dying. Couldn't sleep without medication. Would wake up at 3 in the morning in a panic, checking my bank account on my phone, making sure the mortgage was still paid, that I still had enough to survive. I aged 10 years in 6 months. Saw it clearly in the mirror. Gray hair coming in faster than I could keep up with. Deep lines around my eyes and mouth that weren't there before. I looked tired. Beaten down. Older than my years. And I hated that she'd done this to me. Hated that she'd taken not just my money but my peace. My sense of security. My faith in people. My ability to sleep through the night. About 4 months after the grocery store encounter, I got a message on Facebook from my niece, Teresa's oldest daughter. She was 23, had always been sweet to me growing up. I'd helped her with homework, given her rides to school, bought her prom dress when Teresa couldn't afford it. "Aunt Diane, can we talk? It's important. Please." We met at a coffee shop across town where I didn't know anyone. She looked nervous when she arrived. Kept fidgeting with her cup, tearing little pieces off her napkin. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "Of course I would. What's wrong? Is it your mom?" "Sort of. I need to tell you something about her. About what happened with the business." My heart started pounding. Okay. She lied to you. About the business. About a lot of things. I know she lied. No, I mean, it's worse than you think. Way worse. She took a deep breath. She never intended to actually run that business. Not really. She took the classes, yeah. Did all the paperwork. But she never planned to make it work. I stared at her. What do you mean? There was a guy. This boyfriend she was seeing that you didn't know about. Marcus. He convinced her that starting a business was too risky, too much work. Told her she should invest the money instead. In real estate flipping. My stomach dropped. She told me the business failed. There was no business to fail. She paid for some of the startup costs to make it look real, bought some equipment, rented a storage unit for it. But most of the money went to this Marcus guy. He said he had connections, knew about properties they could buy cheap and flip for profit. They'd split the profits 50-50. What happened? They lost everything. Every penny. The properties were a scam. Marcus disappeared with whatever was left. Mom was too embarrassed to tell you the truth. Too scared. So she pretended the business was running for as long as she could. Posted fake updates on Facebook. Made up stories about clients. All of it was lies. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process what I was hearing. When the loan payments started coming due, she just ignored them. Figured you'd handle it somehow. That's what you always did, right? Handle things. Why are you telling me this now? She looked like she might cry. Because there's more. And I can't keep quiet about it anymore. She took out credit cards in your name. Using information from when you co-signed those business papers. I don't know how many. But I saw bills at her place with your name on them. The room spun. I had to grip the edge of the table to stay upright. She committed fraud. I think so. I'm sorry, Aunt Diane. I didn't know about any of this until recently. I was cleaning her apartment, she asked me to organize some stuff, and I found paperwork. Found emails. When I confronted her about it, she told me to mind my own business. Told me you could afford it. That you'd been holding money over her head for years and this was just balancing the scales. Balancing the scales. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. How much? On the credit cards? I don't know exactly. But there were at least 4 different cards. All with pretty high limits. I went home and checked my credit report. Something I should have done months ago but was too overwhelmed to think about. I'd been so focused on saving the house that I hadn't thought about anything else. For credit cards I didn't open. All maxed out. Total debt, $37,000. My sister had stolen my identity. Had actively, deliberately committed fraud. Had taken a lifetime of hard work and financial responsibility and burned it to the ground. I couldn't breathe. Started hyperventilating. Had to call 911 because I thought I was having a heart attack. The paramedics came, checked me out, said it was a panic attack. Gave me a paper bag to breathe into and a list of therapists. The next day, I filed a police report. Brought all the documentation, the credit report, the statements, everything. The officer was sympathetic but not hopeful. These cases are hard to prosecute, especially with family. You'd have to prove she did it without your knowledge or permission. Since you gave her access to your information for legitimate business purposes, it's complicated. Defense lawyers tear these cases apart. So she just gets away with it? You can try to sue her in civil court. But if she doesn't have assets, you won't get anything even if you win. Can't get blood from a stone. I contacted a lawyer anyway. Paid for a consultation I couldn't afford. He said the same thing the officer had said. I could sue, absolutely. But it would cost me thousands in legal fees for a judgment I'd probably never collect. The best thing you can do is dispute the charges with the credit card companies. File fraud claims. It'll be a long process, but you can probably get most of it cleared. You'll need to file a police report for each one. Provide documentation. It'll take months, maybe a year. I spent the next month doing nothing but dealing with credit card companies. Hours on the phone. Forms to fill out. Documentation to provide. Explaining over and over that yes, this was my sister. Yes, I gave her some access to my information. No, I didn't authorize these cards. No, I didn't make these purchases. Some of the charges were cleared. Some weren't. The credit card company said I should have been monitoring my credit more closely. That I was partially liable for not catching it sooner. I still ended up responsible for almost $15,000 of debt I didn't create. I had to file bankruptcy. Me. The woman who'd spent her entire adult life being financially responsible. Who'd never missed a payment on anything. Who'd counseled others on managing their money. Who'd taught classes at church about budgeting and saving. Bankruptcy. The shame of it almost killed me. I had to meet with a bankruptcy attorney, another expense I couldn't afford. Had to list all my debts, all my assets, explain how I'd gotten into this situation. You're actually a perfect candidate for Chapter 7, the attorney said. Your income qualifies, and most of this debt is from fraud. The court will be sympathetic. Sympathetic. Like sympathy would erase the humiliation of having to declare bankruptcy at 52 years old. I was sitting alone in my house the night after I filed the bankruptcy paperwork, looking at all the forms, when I finally let myself feel the full weight of what had happened. My sister had taken everything from me. My savings. My security. My credit. My reputation. My faith community. My sense of identity as someone who had her life together. And she'd done it without a single moment of remorse. Without even acknowledging what she'd done. The forgiveness sermons I'd heard my whole life played in my head. Forgive 70 times 7. Turn the other cheek. Bless those who curse you. And I realized something. Those sermons were wrong. Not the Bible has a lot more nuance than most preachers acknowledge. But the sermons were wrong. Forgiveness isn't about pretending something didn't happen. It's not about allowing someone to continue hurting you. It's not about sacrificing yourself on the altar of being a good Christian while the person who wronged you walks free with no consequences. Real forgiveness is about releasing yourself from the prison of bitterness. But that doesn't mean opening the prison door and inviting your abuser back in. I could forgive Teresa for what she did. I could choose not to carry hatred in my heart. But that didn't mean I had to have a relationship with her. Didn't mean I had to trust her. Didn't mean I had to pretend we were family. Some relationships are so broken they can't be fixed. And that's okay. The Bible talks about that too, about shaking the dust off your feet and moving on. About not throwing your pearls before swine. About protecting yourself from those who would harm you. I started seeing a therapist. Not a Christian. Counselor. I'd tried that route and got the same forgiveness without boundaries message I'd heard from Pastor Michael. A regular therapist who understood trauma and abuse and family dynamics. Dr. Sanders was in her 60s, kind but direct. She didn't mince words. In our first session, I unloaded everything. The money. The fraud. The foreclosure. The church. All of it. She listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What your sister did was abuse. Financial abuse. Emotional abuse. And possibly criminal fraud. You understand that, right?" I guess I never thought of it as abuse. What would you call it? I don't know. Betrayal? Bad choices? It's abuse, Diane. And you've been conditioned your whole life to accept it. To make excuses for it. To blame yourself for it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I don't blame myself. Don't you? You keep saying things like I should have been more careful and I should have read the paperwork more closely and maybe I pushed her into something she wasn't ready for. That's self-blame. She was right. I'd been blaming myself this entire time. For trusting my sister. For not protecting myself better. For not seeing the warning signs. You were manipulated by someone you loved and trusted, Dr. Sanders continued. That's not your fault. The person who commits fraud is responsible for committing fraud. Not the person who trusted them. Over the next few months, Dr. Sanders helped me see patterns I'd never recognized before. How Teresa had manipulated me for years. How she'd learned exactly what buttons to push to get what she wanted. How she'd used my faith against me, knowing that I'd give to family, that I'd help those in need, that I'd been taught to sacrifice for others. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself from them, Dr. Sanders said in one session. Forgiveness isn't reconciliation. They're two very different things. That concept was revolutionary to me. I'd spent my whole life believing that forgiveness meant things went back to normal. That you forgot about the hurt and moved on like nothing happened. Forgiveness is releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you, she explained. But reconciliation requires the other person to acknowledge harm, take responsibility, and change their behavior. If they won't do those things, reconciliation isn't possible. And trying to force it just puts you back in harm's way. I started working on actually forgiving Teresa. Not for her sake, she didn't deserve it and wouldn't even know about it. But for mine. So the bitterness wouldn't eat me alive. It was hard. Harder than anything I'd ever done. Some days I'd think I'd made progress, then I'd see her post something on Facebook and the rage would come flooding back. But slowly, over months, I started to let it go. Started to accept that she was who she was. That she probably wouldn't change. That waiting for an apology or acknowledgement was just keeping me stuck. I also started rebuilding my life. Slowly. One piece at a time. The bankruptcy discharged most of the debt. My credit score tanked, but at least the crushing weight of payments I couldn't afford was gone. I started saving again. $5 a week at first. That's all I could manage. But it was something. It was progress. I picked up extra hours at work, but not to the point of exhaustion like before. Learned to say no sometimes. Learned that my worth wasn't tied to how much I could produce or how many hours I could work. I also started looking for a new church. Couldn't go back to my old one. Too much history. Too much judgment. Too many people who'd made assumptions without knowing the truth. I visited several churches before finding one that felt right. Small church across town. Nobody knew me there. Nobody knew my story. I could just be Diane. Not the victim. Not the bitter woman who wouldn't forgive. Just Diane. The pastor there was different. Younger, maybe early 40s. More thoughtful in his approach. One Sunday he preached. About boundaries, about how Jesus had boundaries. Jesus walked away from toxic situations, he said. He called out hypocrisy. He didn't allow people to abuse him in the name of being loving. Boundaries aren't unchristian. They're necessary. They're healthy. The Bible is full of examples of people setting boundaries and protecting themselves from those who would harm them. I cried during that sermon. Felt seen and understood for the first time in months. Like someone finally got it. After service, I introduced myself to the pastor. His name was Michael too, coincidentally. Pastor Michael Hayes. I'm new, I said. Just visiting. Well, we're glad to have you. Come back anytime. He didn't pry. Didn't ask about my story. Didn't try to extract information. Just welcomed me genuinely and let me be. I started attending regularly. Joined a small group after a few weeks. Made new friends who didn't know anything about Teresa or the foreclosure or the bankruptcy. Who just knew me as Diane, the woman who liked coffee and mystery novels and had a dry sense of humor. It felt like starting over. And in a way, it was. A complete restart of my life. 3 months into attending the new church, Teresa tried to contact me. Sent me a message through my niece because I'd blocked her on everything I could think of. Mom wants to talk to you. She says she's sorry and wants to make things right. My first instinct was hope. That old familiar hope that maybe, finally, she'd come to her senses. Maybe she was ready to take responsibility. To actually apologize and mean it. But then I remembered every other time she'd apologized. Every other time she'd promised to do better. And how it always ended the same way. With me giving more and her taking more and nothing actually changing. I told my niece, tell your mother that I forgive her. But I don't want a relationship with her. She needs to work on herself and I need to protect myself. Those two things can't coexist right now. My niece reported back that Teresa was hurt. Felt like I was being unforgiving and cold. That family should stick together no matter what. Of course she felt that way. Because in her mind, I'm sorry should make everything okay. Should erase the consequences of her actions. Should obligate me to let her back into my life so she could hurt me again. But that's not how it works. That's not what forgiveness means. I don't hate my sister. I really don't. I've worked hard in therapy to get to a place where I can think about her without rage consuming me. Where I can see her posts on social media, through my niece's account, and feel nothing more than a vague sadness. But I also don't trust her. Don't want her in my life. Don't believe she's capable of the kind of change that would make a relationship safe for me. And I'm okay with that now. Last month, I went back to my old church. Not to rejoin, I knew I'd never do that. But I wanted to see if I could handle being in that building again. Wanted to know if I'd made enough progress to walk through those doors without falling apart. I sat in the back. Way in the back, where I used to sit when I first started attending 20 years ago. Before I became one of the leaders. Before I became indispensable. Pastor Michael was preaching about the prodigal son. About the merciful father who welcomed his wayward son home with open arms. About forgiveness and grace and second chances. It's a beautiful story. One of my favorites from childhood. But sitting there listening to it as an adult who'd been through what I'd been through, I noticed something I'd never noticed before. The story leaves out an important detail. The prodigal son came back repentant. Came back acknowledging what he'd done wrong. Came back changed, or at least claiming to be changed. He didn't come back demanding his inheritance. Didn't come back blaming his father for his problems. Didn't come back expecting everything to go back to normal. Teresa never came back repentant. She came back expecting me to pretend nothing happened. To open my wallet and my heart and my life back up to her without her ever acknowledging the destruction she'd caused. There's a difference. A huge difference. After the service, I saw Margaret in the fellowship hall. She was pouring coffee, same thing she'd done every Sunday for as long as I'd known her. Her face lit up when she saw me. Diane. Oh my goodness, I've missed you so much. She came around the table and hugged me tight. We chatted for a few minutes. She asked how I was doing. I gave vague answers. Fine. Keeping busy. Managing. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. How are things with Teresa? Have you two worked things out? We don't have a relationship anymore. Her face fell dramatically. Oh no. I'm so sorry. That must be so hard. Have you tried to reach out? To reconcile? I've tried everything I can try, Margaret. Some relationships can't be fixed. And that's okay. But she's your sister. Your only sister. Family is everything. Family is important, I corrected gently. But not at the cost of your own well-being. Not when the relationship is toxic and abusive. She looked uncomfortable with the word abusive. Shifted her weight from foot to foot. I'm sure she didn't mean to hurt you. People make mistakes. That's what grace is for. Grace doesn't mean allowing someone to keep hurting you. It doesn't mean having no boundaries. She didn't know what to say to that. Changed the subject quickly. Asked about my job, the weather, anything else. We chatted for a few more minutes, then I left. Walked out to my car and sat there for a while. I realized in that moment that I'd never be able to fully come back to that church. Not because they'd done anything explicitly wrong, but because they couldn't understand. Couldn't accept that some things are too broken to fix. Couldn't live with the ambiguity of a story that doesn't have a neat, happy ending. They needed reconciliation and restoration. A testimony about how God brought me and Teresa back together. How forgiveness healed our relationship. I couldn't give them that. And I wasn't going to pretend I could just to make them comfortable. For everyone still watching, thank you for hearing my story. If this resonates with you at all, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had to set boundaries with family and been made to feel guilty for it. I need to know there are other people out there who understand. I'm rebuilding my life now. It's slow. Some days are harder than others. Some days I wake up angry all over again. Some days I question whether I'm doing the right thing by maintaining my distance from Teresa. But most days, I know I am. Most days, I feel more peace than I've felt in years. My credit is gradually improving. Went from the low 500s after the bankruptcy to the high 600s now. It'll take time to get back to where I was, but it's happening. I'm saving money again. Not much, but more than $5 a week now. I have almost $2,000 in savings. It's not the security I used to have, but it's something. It's a cushion. It's proof that I can rebuild. I'm also building a new identity. One that isn't based on being the helper. The fixer. The person everyone can count on to sacrifice herself. I still help people. But I'm more careful now. More discerning. I don't give beyond what I can afford to lose. I don't enable people. I don't rescue them from the consequences of their own choices. I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the results of their actions. Even if they're family. Even if it's hard to watch. Even if they blame you for not saving them. Teresa is still out there somewhere, still living her life. I see updates from my niece occasionally. Teresa's struggling financially again. Lost her apartment, moved in with her daughter. Still can't keep a steady job. Still making poor decisions with money and men and everything else. Part of me feels sad for her. Part of me wishes things were different. Part of me wants to help. But I don't. Because I know now that helping her doesn't actually help her. It enables her. Allows her to keep living irresponsibly because someone will always bail her out. Keeps her from ever facing the consequences that might actually motivate her to change. The best thing I can do for both of us is maintain my boundaries. Protect myself. Let her live her life and face her own consequences. My therapist asked me recently, in one of our sessions, have you forgiven her? Really forgiven her? I thought about it for a long time before answering. I think so. I don't wish bad things on her. I don't fantasize about revenge or karma catching up with her. I don't lie awake at night consumed with anger anymore. So yeah, I think I've forgiven her. But you don't want a relationship with her. No. I don't. And you're okay with those two things coexisting? Forgiveness and permanent distance? I'm learning to be. That's growth, Diane. Real, significant growth. And it is. Because for so long, I thought forgiveness and reconciliation were the same thing. That you couldn't have one without the other. That to truly forgive meant to restore the relationship. But I know better now. I know that I can release bitterness without releasing my right to protect myself. That I can wish someone well from a distance without inviting them back into my life. That I can forgive the debt while still acknowledging that the person who created it isn't trustworthy. Last week, I had coffee with Pastor Michael from my new church. We've become friends over the past year. Real friends, not just pastor and parishioner. He knows my whole story now. I told him everything over several conversations. "How are you doing?" he asked, stirring sugar into his coffee. Really doing, not the Sunday morning answer. Better. Not perfect, but better. Some days are still hard. That's honest. I appreciate that. Healing isn't linear. My old church would say I need to reconcile with Teresa. That I'm harboring unforgiveness by keeping my distance. He shook his head. Reconciliation requires two people. Two people who are both willing to acknowledge harm, take responsibility, and do the hard work to rebuild trust. If one person isn't willing to do those things, reconciliation isn't possible. And that's not your fault. It doesn't feel okay sometimes. It feels like failure. Like I should be able to fix this somehow. It's not failure. It's wisdom. Jesus tells us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. That means protecting yourself while maintaining a pure heart. You can have both. You can forgive someone and still refuse to put yourself back in harm's way. That conversation freed something in me. Gave me permission, not that I needed permission, but it helped to hear it from someone in spiritual authority, to stop feeling guilty for protecting myself. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm really not. I'm not consumed with anger or revenge fantasies. I've genuinely released Teresa to her own life and her own consequences. But I've also released myself from the obligation to keep trying to save her. From the guilt of not being enough. From the lie that good Christians have to accept abuse in the name of forgiveness or family loyalty. A few weeks ago, I was going through old photos, organizing them into albums. Found pictures of Teresa and me as kids. 6 and 11 years old, gap-toothed and happy. Arms around each other. We looked so close. So innocent. I remembered loving her so much it hurt. Being so proud to have a little sister. Protecting her from bullies. Helping her with homework. Braiding her hair before school. I cried over those pictures. Grieved the relationship we could have had if she'd been different. If I'd been different. If our lives had taken different paths. But then I put the pictures away and got back to my life. My new life. The one I'm building from the ashes of the old one. I'm dating someone now. First time since my husband died 17 years ago. His name is Robert. He's a widower too, lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago. Understands loss and grief and starting over. I told him about Teresa on our third date. Wanted him to know what he was getting into. Wanted him to understand why I'm careful about trust. Why I have boundaries that might seem harsh to someone who doesn't know the story. He listened to the whole thing without interrupting. When I finished, he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for trusting me with that. I can see why you're careful about who you let into your life. Does it bother you that I don't talk to my sister? Some people think it makes me cold or unforgiving. Not at all. Some people earn access to our lives. Some people lose it through their own actions. That's just reality. You're not obligated to keep someone in your life who hurt you, family or not." I nearly cried right there in the restaurant. After years of being told I was wrong for having boundaries, here was someone who understood. Who got it without me having to explain or justify or defend myself. We're taking things slow. I'm not in a hurry. For the first time in my life, I'm learning to be okay alone. To not need someone else to complete me or give me purpose or validate my existence. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. My house is mine again. Really, truly mine. No loans. No liens. No threats of foreclosure. Just mine. I painted the living room last month. A color I actually love, not just whatever was on sale. A deep blue-gray that makes me happy every time I walk into the room. Bought new curtains. Hung art I chose because I liked it, not because it was practical or matched everything. I planted a garden in the backyard. Vegetables and flowers. Tomatoes and peppers and zinnias and sunflowers. Something growing and alive that I'm nurturing. Something beautiful that's mine. I adopted a dog from the shelter 3 months ago. An older dog nobody wanted because she has arthritis and moves slowly and isn't cute and playful like the puppies. Her name is Sadie. She's 10 years old and gray around the muzzle and perfect. We're both starting over, both a little broken, both healing. She follows me everywhere. Sleeps at the foot of my bed. Looks at me like I hung the moon. This is my life now. Smaller than it was before in some ways. I'm not leading Bible studies or organizing church events anymore. I'm not the person everyone turns to for help. I'm not indispensable. But it's bigger in other ways. More authentic. More mine. More honest. I still think about forgiveness a lot. About what it means. About what it doesn't mean. And I've come to understand that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not permission you give someone else to hurt you again. I forgave Teresa. I released the bitterness that was poisoning me. I stopped letting anger consume every waking moment. But I didn't go back. Didn't open my life back up to someone who'd proven she couldn't be trusted. Didn't sacrifice my peace and security on the altar of family obligation. And I'm not sorry about that. Not anymore. Last Sunday, Pastor Michael preached about the woman who anointed Jesus' feet with expensive perfume. The disciples criticized her for wasting resources that could have been given to the poor. Such a waste, they said. Such foolishness. But Jesus defended her, Pastor Michael said. Told them to leave her alone. Sometimes the most important thing isn't what others think you should do. It's what your heart knows is right. Sometimes you have to break the alabaster jar even when everyone around you says it's wasteful. Sometimes you have to choose what feeds your soul even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. I thought about that all week. About how many years I spent doing what I thought I should do instead of what I knew was right for me. Helping Teresa when I knew deep down she'd never change. Staying in a church that wouldn't hear my truth. Accepting the narrative that I was the problem because I couldn't just forgive and forget and move on like nothing happened. I'm done with should. Done with other people's expectations of who I'm supposed to be. Done with performing forgiveness to make others comfortable while I suffered in silence. I've started speaking up now. When people ask about Teresa, I tell the truth. We don't have a relationship. She hurt me deeply, committed fraud against me, and hasn't taken responsibility for any of it. I've forgiven her, but that doesn't mean I trust her or want her in my life. Some people get uncomfortable. Change the subject. Judge me silently. I can see it in their eyes. Others nod knowingly. Say, good for you. That takes strength. Share their own stories of family members they've had to distance themselves from. Parents. Siblings. Children, even. There are more of us than I realized. People who've had to choose their own well-being over family obligation. Who've been made to feel guilty for having boundaries. Who've been told they're not really Christians if they can't forgive and reconcile. We find each other somehow. Recognize the same pain in each other's eyes. The same hard-won wisdom. If you're one of us, if you're watching this and you've had to make the impossible choice between family and your own survival, I see you. I understand. You're not alone. You're not wrong. You're not unforgiving or bitter or cold. You're protecting yourself. And that's not just okay, it's necessary. Hit that subscribe button if you need to hear more stories like this. Stories about real people dealing with real family dysfunction and making hard choices. Leave a comment about where you are in your journey. What stage of healing you're in. Whether you're still in the thick of it or years down the road like me. We're all figuring this out together. Teresa reached out again last week. Sent me an email because I blocked her everywhere else she might reach me. I know you're angry at me. I know I messed up. But I'm your sister. We're all each other has. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Can't we please just move past this and be a family again? Move past this. Like it's a minor disagreement. Like she didn't commit fraud and nearly destroy my entire life. Like forgiveness means pretending it never happened. I stared at that email for a long time. Felt the familiar pull. The guilt. The voice in my head that's been trained since childhood to believe that family is everything. You have to forgive, you have to give people second chances, third chances, infinite chances. But then I thought about my house. My peace. My rebuilt life. How hard I've worked to get here. How far I've come. I deleted the email without responding. That might sound cold to some of you. Unforgiving. Unchristian. But it's not. It's self-preservation. It's wisdom. It's knowing that Teresa's version of moving past this means me pretending nothing happened while she continues to have no accountability, no boundaries, no consequences. Because I know Teresa. Know her patterns. Know that I messed up isn't real accountability. It's a manipulation tactic. Within weeks of letting her back in, she'd have another crisis, another need, another emergency that somehow becomes my responsibility. I can't do it anymore. Won't do it anymore. And I'm finally, truly okay with that. My therapist says I've made remarkable progress. From the woman who showed up in her office 18 months ago, barely functioning, drowning in betrayal and bitterness and financial ruin, to someone who's rebuilt her life and found genuine peace. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy. Some days I miss the version of myself who could help everyone without thinking twice. Who was needed. Whose identity was wrapped up in being the strong one, the capable one, the one who always came through. But I don't miss the exhaustion. The resentment. The feeling of being used and unappreciated. The anxiety of never having enough because I was always giving it away. This version of me is better. Healthier. More whole. I'm building a new community now. New friends who know me as just Diane, not as Teresa's sister or the woman who got scammed or the victim of financial abuse. A new church that preaches healthy boundaries alongside grace. A new life that's entirely mine. Robert asked me last night if I'd ever want to get married again. Maybe, I said. Someday. But I'm not in a hurry. Good. Neither am I. We've got time. All the time in the world. Time. What a luxury. What a gift. For so many years, I lived in constant crisis mode. Teresa's emergencies. Financial pressure. The weight of everyone else's needs pressing down on me every single day. Now I have time. Time to think. Time to heal. Time to figure out who I am when I'm not saving someone else. I like who I'm becoming. She's not perfect. Still struggles with guilt sometimes. Still has moments of doubt about whether she did the right thing. Still wonders if there was something more she could have done. But she's strong. She's healing. She's learning to put herself first without feeling selfish about it. And she's learning that forgiveness isn't about the other person at all. It's about freeing yourself. I forgave Teresa. Not because she deserved it. Not because she asked for it. Not because she earned it or showed remorse or made amends. I forgave her because I deserved peace. And peace doesn't come from reconciliation with someone who can't be trusted. It doesn't come from allowing toxic people back into your life. It comes from accepting reality and moving forward anyway. My reality is that my sister is not safe for me. That our relationship was toxic and one-sided and destructive. That she will likely never change, never take responsibility, never become the person I wish she could be. And I'm okay with that. I've stopped waiting for her to become someone she isn't. Stopped hoping for an apology that will never come. Stopped sacrificing myself on the altar of family obligation. This is my life now. Hard one. Rebuilt from nothing. Protected fiercely. Mine. And I'm not giving it up for anyone. Not even family. Because I've learned that the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. And you can't maintain that relationship, can't honor yourself, if you're constantly sacrificing your well-being for people who don't value you. For everyone who's made it to the end of this story, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. For bearing witness. For sitting with me through all of this. If you learned something from my story, if it helped you see your own situation differently, if it gave you permission to set boundaries you've been afraid to set, then telling it was worth every painful moment. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about real struggles and real healing. Comment where you're from and what part of this resonated with you most. I read every comment. Your stories help me as much as I hope mine helps you. We're all just trying to survive our families. To love without losing ourselves. To forgive without being destroyed. To be faithful without being foolish. It's possible. I'm living proof. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can release bitterness while maintaining ironclad boundaries. You can be a person of faith and still protect yourself from people who hurt you. Those things aren't contradictory. They're necessary. They're compatible. They're what actual wisdom looks like. I'm 52 years old. I have a house I nearly lost but saved. A credit score that's slowly climbing back from the depths. A dog who follows me everywhere with trusting eyes. A man who's patient and kind and understands boundaries. A church that feels like home. Friends who really know me. A therapist who keeps me grounded. I have peace. Real, genuine peace. The kind that comes from within, not from external circumstances. Not from having everything together or having lots of money or having perfect relationships. Peace that comes from knowing who I am and what I will and won't accept. From having boundaries and enforcing them. From choosing myself even when it's hard. Teresa doesn't have access to my peace anymore. She doesn't get to disturb it. Doesn't get to create chaos in my carefully rebuilt life. Doesn't get to take anything else from me. I gave her decades. Gave her my money, my time, my energy, my trust, my reputation, my security. I have nothing left to give her. And that's okay. More than okay. It's right. Because forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the person who broke you. It means being whole enough to walk away. And I'm finally walking away. Not in anger. Not in bitterness. Not in revenge. But in peace. In wisdom. In self-love. I forgave her. But I'm not going back. Ever. And that's my right. My choice. My boundary. And I'm finally, completely okay with all of it. This is my story. This is my truth. This is my life now. And it's mine.